So, hi everybody. I'm here with Mike Hale. I'm going to be interviewing him about his experience in the Solana ecosystem. So, hi Mike, how are you doing today?
Hey there, I'm doing very well, thank you.
Excellent. So, I want to start with asking you about your background in technology and specifically related to Solana.
Sure. So I've been in software development in one role or another from junior developer up to solutions architect, technical project manager, um, product manager for over 20 years. Started out doing a lot of ASP.NET development. Well, I started doing ASP, then ASP.NET, a lot of web development stuff, some corporate gigs, and then the last probably 2 or 3 years or so, I'd spent about 10 or 11 years working almost exclusively in custom WordPress development. And then the last 2 or 3 years have kind of shifted over more into Web3. I started in developing things for Ethereum with Solidity, and then kind of did both. I liked Solana as well. So I kind of dabbled in both. And then probably about a year or so ago, I shifted completely into any Web3 development stuff being done on Solana versus anything else. So kind of I'd say I was intermediate to advanced Solana developer. Fairly experienced with it now. There's definitely always a lot to learn, but I think I'm getting there.
Well, for someone like me who, has just done more of the introductory things on the development side using the Rust programming language, what kind of advice would you have for those, coming in from, let's say, the Ethereum ecosystem or other EVM ecosystems and getting onto Solana?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a mind shift that has to happen because so many 80% of it is fundamentally the same, but that last little bit is what really trips you up. My suggestion is always there are so many different courses and resources out there. Is just take there's free ones all over the place. Just take every free Solana course that you can. Um, it's not a huge transition, but with the way like the Solana account models work and Rust is kind of a not quite very fun language to pick up on. I always suggest go right to Anchor. Vanilla Rust is fine, but you're going to save so much time and hassle using Anchor. Take all the courses and then join. There's so many boot camps, like NAS Academy and Code. The Web3 Builders Alliance has a program. So taking the courses and then getting into one of those, 8-week learn Solana programs is probably one of the quicker way to learn things, as well as just looking at through the source of so many of the different projects that are out there.
Mm-hmm. So from what you're saying, it sounds like basically people, there's a lot of resources for people to take free classes that are running about 8 weeks. And then you're saying a lot of it is similar to other protocols, but then like when you get into the specifics, that's when it becomes a little more complicated. So how can people also get support while they're going through this kind of process?
Yeah, I think there's definitely some good Discord groups. There's Lamport DAO, there's WBA has one. Most of the Helios has a lot of developer chats in there. So I would say get into some of the discords. Once you understand, blockchain Web3 development versus, say regular web development, those concepts are all the same, but how you actually implement them is what's going to be different. So I think you have one step forward in that, how basically how Web3 works. You're communicating with a wallet, you're sending a transaction, there's some on-chain code that's going to execute, and what the limitations are around all that stuff. So, but yeah, getting that last bit. So if you join some of those different developer discords, there's always people in there that'll help answer a question or get you past a roadblock if you get stuck.
So you would say that on the different Discord groups, is there any that you recommend? I mean, we're both part of like the super team Discords. So what's sort of the best place? I mean, there's so many things out there, but what's your recommendation
I
on that?
I'm big in the Web3 Builders Alliance. I've been through a couple of their programs. Super Team, obviously. Lamport DAO is good. That's a fun one. I was looking through Solana Collective is another one, and then there's the 76 devs, and then I'm in just a bunch of kind of other ones that have developer chat in there sometimes too, like Helios, Metaplex, Pith. They have different developer channels in there too. So if you're using a protocol or a platform and you're in there at Discord, a lot of them will have a developer channel. So if you're looking at something specific, they can help you out there too.
Excellent. Yeah, and so with that being said, one of the pain points that you've described is like that last 20%. So could you maybe elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think if you look at it from the first place of, just even talking to the different wallet, the different way the transactions are structured, um, the way you send the data, the way you receive the data, working with the different like wallet libraries, and then with the different APIs, you start getting like the Helios APIs, and so there's some other different providers, using those versus creating the raw transactions, which is good. Learning some of like the digital asset standard for working with assets on chain. That's a learning curve to get past. But I think once you kind of get those, once you kind of understand those, then I think everything starts to move a lot quicker, because it is just learning those specifics of how does this transaction work, how does that transaction work.
So what do you think are some of the things that Solana can improve on so that people get streamlined more quickly within the ecosystem?
Yeah, there's a couple things that stand out. The tooling is pretty good. There's, with like the local validators, there's a lot of stuff that you can do locally. I think one of the biggest challenges right now is the dependency hell. Anchor will do an update, but if the Solana, sorry, if the Solana runtime that you're running is a different version, Anchor's a different version, you're running a different version of Rust, you're running different libraries that have different dependencies. That's, I think, every time one of them upgrades, it seems to kind of break everything. So I think that's one of the biggest hurdles that Solana has to get over. The other thing I always say is kind of missing is that intermediate level education and examples. There's so many. We talked before about some of the different boot camps and courses and things. Those are very beginner, and then there's some that are kind of more more advanced, like WBA has definitely some more advanced things, but that kind of intermediate of, okay, I understand the basics, but now how do I build something real? If there are more examples and documentation and courses about those types of things, or how to do work specifically with one of these protocols. There's a lot of these platforms and protocols out there that have some documentation, but obviously it's lean teams, they don't have a lot of developer docs available. So I think that's one. If there was more examples and documentation around how to work specifically with some of these protocols, that would be very helpful too.
Okay, so you're saying like I guess so the basic level stuff is more easily outlaid, but then like when you're trying to build specific things or products, well, let's go back to the first thing you said. So it seems like there could be two different versions when things are pushed out, I guess, on the operational layer. That's what I'm understanding. It's sort of like, I guess, what Red Hat does in the back end for different people. So everybody's running the same software version. So if you're building stuff on top of the tech stack, it's running the same thing. So you're saying right now, Anchor, and so like something may be pushed on Anchor, but then it's not like it's not doing the same thing that's actually on Solana. So then like the dev and the ops, when you're trying to launch things, things will break because you're not, you may actually be testing it on a version that then it's not running on the mainnet. So,
Yeah, exactly. You could be running a version of Anchor. If you're running the latest version of the Solana VM, then Anchor might not have something supported, or not even that, but you could be using, like a Metaplex library, or a library, something that has a dependency that has some sort of a conflict, and then it gets tricky. There's ways around it, but it seems like every time there's upgrades, that situation pops up, and then you have to find somebody who's got the magic combination of config settings to get around it.
hmm. Yeah, no, that sounds yeah, I mean that's definitely a huge pain point. I think they're probably gonna have to think about something on the operational side to make it more streamlined. But I think it's a like you said, Web3 is a growing industry, so it will probably take us some time for that. That being said, what are some of the emerging trends that you're seeing in the ecosystem that are working and maybe speak to that a bit?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I've seen in growth in Solana is on the DeFi side, the DeFi applications. So it's getting pretty interesting. Some of the different ways you can combine these different DeFi protocols together to do things. That's my example too of it'd be very helpful if more of them had more in-depth documentation to work with them. A lot of their documentation will just be kind of like high level use cases, but necessarily, getting a little more complicated or deeper into the woods. I think being able to build different front ends that link the different things together is a big opportunity. And then, there's a couple, I'm pretty much straight, Rust, Anchor Rust and for development, but I know there's a lot of different kind of programming languages that are coming out that can be used with Solana. There's tools like Soda that'll, generate some of these front ends for you. So I think once we
Mm,
start seeing different, not necessarily so much on the program side, but even on the front end side of different clients that will be able to work and make calls to, Solana programs. And there are some other languages, like you're looking at different languages like Python, Zig, and a couple other languages. I'm not real familiar with them, but I think that's kind of cool. I think that'll bring in a lot of other people when they come in. Also, last year we saw the EVM approach, the two different players in that, where you can kind of run Ethereum, Solidity apps on a Solana runtime. That's going to be pretty interesting going forward. I don't think we're quite where that's a real viable option for most people, but I think that's going to bring anything that will bring experienced Ethereum developers into the Solana ecosystem is going to be huge for the protocol.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's I personally use a lot of the apps myself, so and I've definitely seen like an explosion within the DeFi space. So, as we see these things grow, what else do you think, what do you think is like the vision that we can look forward to from the developer side? Because I like what you're saying. I mean, getting people onboarded, if I didn't even know that, I thought like you can, most of the smart contracts were done on Rust. So it's really good to hear that you can now use Python and use the other programming languages, because I think that makes onboarding a lot easier, because people, I mean, it's not like they go and study Rust in school. Uh, so I mean, but they do, I know the universities do offer Python, because I think people can do AI in Python and things like that. And that's really also good to hear regarding the ability for them to, have the front end done so they can really focus on the back end a lot more. I mean, that's a huge time saver if some of the things are plug and play. And so, yeah, like I thought there was like this program, yeah, so it helps you take your Solidity code and I guess run it on Solana, but you're saying that's still sort of in the works.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's functional. There's a lot of it's not like you can't just pick up your Ethereum Solidity program and just move it over and have it work right. So there's one you can do Solana programs kind of on the Ethereum runtime, and then one that you can do Ethereum code that runs on the Solana runtime, because as long as it compiles to the BPF format, then then it's good. So yeah, I think that's going to be a bigger thing. I think they're available, they're out there. I don't think they are getting, a ton of usage yet. There's still a ways to go with getting them to where it's, very a little simpler or more straightforward for a developer to be able to port their code. But I think that's something I think we're going to see as a trend going forward.
And what do you feel about the collaboration and support, like after you've come into the ecosystem? How did you find that?
Yeah, I mean, the Solana community is a great community. That's one of the biggest, assets that it has. People are always, well, at least from my experience, people are very willing to help each other, share information and kind of give back to the Solana community. Um, I've had a lot of, as I was learning things, I had a lot of people I could go to get questions answered. Like we were talking about the Discords earlier, just kind of being involved in some of these developer communities, just bringing it is good because it seems like there are always a lot of people out there to help. There's a lot of companies that are just pushing out a ton of information. I said it'd be better if there was more, but there are some that definitely do, put out a lot of educational content for developers coming in. So I think that's good. And then just getting in one of those boot camper programs like the WBA was a good one, because they have it from like a beginner tier, and then after you graduate that, you go into their artisan tier, and then that's a group where everybody's learning with each other. So yeah, getting involved in one of those communities is really helpful.
Yeah, so I'm probably going to post this, on social media, Discord and wherever. So what will be really helpful is we can get these links at the bottom of the video after, when you have a chance to email them to me so that everybody who's watching, has the access and has that insight from you. And I guess the other thing I want to know is like, what are you excited about? Like, what do you think, it seems like you've been in the IT for so long. So like now that you're seeing we're in this, and also the bull market right now. So like, what are you looking forward to in the space?
Yeah, it's definitely good to see, Solana having some good vibes around it, some good luck, some good feelings. When I was involved in Solana before, before all the crash and the bear and the single digit token price. And I always said, nothing about I like the token price obviously, but nothing about that changes the fundamental way the Solana technology works. It's still solid. You can believe in it or not, but it's still, it's an approach. It's a solution to doing blockchain development. So I don't think anything ever was changed or changed my mind or got me discouraged about the tech. I thought it was just kind of the narrative around it and the way people viewed it. I think we've kind of turned that corner now where you can criticize it. There's a lot, you can criticize any chain, any language. But I think it's definitely getting to where it's kind of turned that corner, where people are taking it more seriously. That's exciting. It's exciting seeing some of the things that are the only possible on Solana stuff like the DPIN. I think we're gonna start seeing real world use cases for the compressed NFTs, where it's Internet of Things type stuff, or real world assets, where it's not just for large collections and things. That's a big one. So overall, I just think we're starting to see Solana really get traction. The move in prices is nice, but I think we're seeing some of those things that are only possible on Solana, and that's what's really going to make it work is not just necessarily porting an app that's on another chain to Solana, but doing something that really leverages the speed and low costs of Solana and some of the things like DPIN or compressed NFTs offer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of what it's interesting because, I feel like on Ethereum now, they're trying to compress data so that the transactions like that's going to save 80% of what's going to these transactions. But what you're seeing now with all these like L2s is that Ethereum, I feel anyway, the cost of transacting on Ethereum has become absolutely astronomical because now you have like thousands of roll-ups going into
Mhm.
these transactions, right? So now they're trying to, yeah, so I'm interested to know like what is it what do these compressed NFTs mean for a blockchain that's already so efficient?
Yeah, I think when you get into like the world of DePIN and that, where you have something that has hundreds of thousands or millions of things that you want to represent online, doing that as a compressed NFT, just because that's with and you know NFTs on Solana are dirt cheap to begin with, is for what it costs with the storage and everything. But you start talking tens of thousands in something, or I mean, if you just looked at, say you had
Oh,
an
so
NFT
you're
for every property in a county, you're talking about tens of thousands of properties. And if you want to represent that as an NFT, doing the standard NFT, minting all those is going to cost you, a ton of money, especially with Solana prices now. But if you had, the compressed NFTs where you're taking that initial cost off, you could have tens of thousands or millions. If you had every property in a state, every house in a state as an NFT, that's only possible using compressed NFTs because it would just be cost prohibitive otherwise.
can you that's actually I actually am an advisor to a company that actually does that regarding those NFTs. So I'm actually interested of so that means the minting is cheap, but then does that are these NFTs then stored on chain or are they stored um like on AWS or they're backed up on like a cloud service?
Yeah, the metadata in the NFT would be stored the way you would store a regular any regular standard NFT. It's just kind of the way it tracks the ownership. It doesn't create the account for each one, so you're not paying the rent for each NFT, and that's where the costs come in. There's still fees around transferring them and things like that, the regular transaction fees, but on Solana those are minimal anyway. It's just that upfront cost of minting a huge collection of something that's where your costs go down because it's the way it's stored. But the actual NFT part, the picture, the metadata, and everything that works the same.
Mm. Okay, yeah, no, that's very interesting to know actually. And what is that standard called? Is it just compressed NFTs? Because I know in Ethereum
Compressed
it's kind of like
NFTs.
11 ERC 1122 or whatever. So you're saying it's just if I Google compressed NFTs, I'll find something out about that.
Yeah.
Which
Yep.
means like
ZNFT for short. Yep.
so it's like scaling even further on a chain that's already so efficient.
Right.
Well,
Yep. And there is a bit
go
of
ahead.
infrastructure around it as far as like going through because it's sourcing in what's called a Merkle tree. So there's some different infrastructure that goes around towards updating that, and if you transfer one, making sure that that's done. And there are third parties that are involved with that. But yeah, it's really the only way that you could do something where you have 100,000 items or even a million different NFTs that you need to track. So
Well, I thought that was the Merkle tree. I mean, that's just used for proofing something and I guess compressing the data as, like, but using proof so that this is true because of the hashing and you can keep going, but the data storage, that's what they did with Bitcoin, I thought. Um, for
yeah.
for Lightning Network, that was supposed to be how it worked, or if you're trying to run a node and things like that.
Yeah, and I'm not an expert on how that's stored, but yeah, it will store that data in the because then you're looking up when you say, okay, who owns this compressed NFT? You're looking at that chain and those hashes to say, okay, yes, this works. This is the person that owns it, and then you
Oh,
can
I
update
see.
that tree. But that's how
I
it's
see. So
stored.
all these items are sort of bundled under like one of the individual who owns it. So I'll have to figure out how that works in my brain, but it seems like what it is like it could be one NFT, but the info and it proves that this person has the ownership, but you don't always need to have all the information to prove that this is true.
Correct. Yeah, and you can create the Merkle tree to say how many nodes are going to be in it. You can have multiples for a collection and that. But yeah, so it stores all that ownership data and that historical data or that ownership data in that Merkle tree, and then that's how it's looked. So yeah, you're using proofs. You're not going through the whole thing, to see it. And that's where that like the third party infrastructure for querying that and doing the proofs comes in because then you're not having to do that yourself. So, but yeah,
It sounds like, yeah, data optimization. Almost, I guess I would compare it to like when graphs are created for indexing data. Yeah.
right, yeah, and then you're just looking at a little section, a little subsection of that
Yeah, it's
of
not
that whole
looking
tree to
through
say
all the
who owns it.
transactions. It's just looking through like what's pertinent. Okay. Yeah, and I guess I would like to lastly ask you like, what do you think is the most rewarding part of being part of this ecosystem if you were to let other developers know?
I think it's just seeing other teams having some success. I've helped some teams out. I've advised some teams, done some kind of product management type stuff for some of these builders, and it's just cool seeing them place in hackathons or release launch and get some success. Seeing some of these other guys, I haven't worked with them, but like Blaze staking and Jupiter, just these things that kind of seem to come out of. I mean, even if you look at something like Tensor a while back, where Magic Eden owned the NFT market on Solana, and then Tensor came out and had like 2% market share, and now it's the leader. It's just crazy seeing some of these companies kind of come from nowhere and then just really find so much success, and how everybody kind of roots for them and cheers for them and helps them come up, and then they'll turn and give back to the community. So I think just kind of seeing other teams around us, around me have success is really rewarding, especially if it's somebody that you work with or you've talked to or you've seen them kind of from the beginning. So it's really cool to kind of see them getting some traction and getting popular.
Yeah, no, I mean like I think there is a level of excitement that comes from like the energy of having more people enter the space, especially with everything that's happened in the ecosystem. There's been a lot. So this is
Yeah.
definitely this is a nice turn for Solana, I think, for the ecosystem. And I guess we can close off on what is the advice you would give for aspiring developers?
Just build something of your own. Have an idea, get a small idea. It's great to take the courses and the things I mentioned before and join the discords, but come up with some stupid little app that does, 3 or 4 things, and just build that on your own, put it out there, get off local host, get it out there, let people use it, give you some feedback on it, whether it's going to be, a business or not. There's so many little utilities you can do that just do one or two specific little things. I think that's just, it's a great way to learn it, because you have to figure out the things I talked about, those intermediate things. Maybe you have to choose some glass and figure out how something works on your own. But that's what I would say, is have just some little small project, and put it out there when you're done. It could do one thing. It could do one silly little thing, but put it out there.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time. This is great, and I encourage the other devs who are working within the ecosystem to also work, to come and do an interview with me, so that other people, know what it's like to be part of Solana. So thank you.
Of course, thank you.